The year was 2187, and Melissa Carter wiped sweat from her forehead as she prepared another order of synthetic beef burgers. The kitchen of McDonald's orbital station Nexus 7 was hot, despite the advanced cooling systems that hummed overhead. 5 hours into her shift, Melissa had already served customers from 3 different planets. "Order up for the table near Viewport 3, she called out, sliding a tray of food toward her co-worker, Danny. Danny grabbed the tray and grimaced. "More Centaurians, they always leave such a mess." Melissa shrugged. "At least they tip well." The McDonald's on Nexus 7 looked much like its ancient Earth counterparts from centuries ago. The company had maintained its red and yellow branding across 200 years and 6 planets. The only major differences were the artificial gravity, generators beneath the floors, and the massive viewports that showed the stunning blue curve of Earth below. Melissa had worked at this McDonald's for almost 3 years now. Most of her coworkers assumed she was just another struggling young woman, trying to make ends meet in the expensive orbital economy. None except her manager knew the truth. Before serving fries and burgers, Melissa had been Lieutenant Commander, Melissa Carter of the Earth Defense Force, 8th Special Operations Division. She had fought in the Mars Colony Rebellion and had led extraction teams during the Neptune Station crisis. Her body contained military-grade neural implants and reflex enhancers that cost more than the entire restaurant. But those days were behind her now. After testifying against Quantum Defense Systems, a military contractor that had sold faulty life support systems resulting in the deaths of 27 soldiers, Melissa had been placed in a civilian protection program. Her new identity came with a new life, ordinary, quiet, and safe. Patrick Donovan, the restaurant manager, approached her workstation. He was a kind man in his 50s who had taken a chance hiring someone with suspicious gaps in her employment history. "How are you? Holding up today?" he asked quietly. "Fine, sir," Melissa responded automatically, then caught herself. 3 years later, and she still occasionally slipped into military speech patterns. Patrick smiled. "The lunch rush is almost over. Should calm down soon." As if on cue, the entry doors slid open with a soft hydraulic hiss. 3 tall figures ducked to enter the restaurant. Melissa felt her stomach tighten. Draxians. And not just any Draxians. She recognized them from previous visits. Troublemakers. The reptilian aliens stood nearly 7 feet tall, their scaled skin shimmering with iridescent blue patterns. Their species had made first contact with humanity 40 years ago. Relations were officially peaceful, but tensions existed, especially among younger Draxians who often viewed humans as weak and undeserving of their galactic standing. The leader, a Draxian with a distinctive red crest, swaggered toward the counter. His name was Krasthar, or at least that was what he called himself. His 2 companions, Vex, lean and quick, and Zorn, bulky and imposing, flanked him like bodyguards. The restaurant grew quieter. Other customers, humans, Centaurians, and even a pair of Valari merchants, suddenly became very interested in their food. No one wanted trouble. Melissa took a deep breath and moved to the register. Her neural implants, dormant for years, performed an automatic threat assessment out of habit. 3 Draxians, unarmed, most likely, due to station regulations. But their natural strength made them dangerous even without weapons. "Welcome to McDonald's," she said with a practiced smile. "What can I get for you today?" Krasthar leaned on the counter, his clawed hands leaving small scratches on the surface. "Perhaps you can explain why your establishment continues to serve food that is clearly not suitable for multiple species? The Galactic Trade Agreement clearly states, our menu has options for 17 different biological systems," Melissa interrupted politely, "including the seaweed protein wraps that are compatible with Draxian digestion. Would you like to order, or are you just here to discuss menu planning?" The other customers tensed. No one spoke to Draxians that way, especially not the troublemakers who clearly came looking for conflict. Krasathar's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of irritation. "You have quite a mouth for a food dispenser," he hissed. Vex laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "Perhaps she needs to learn proper respect for superior species." Melissa's implants detected elevated heart rates from nearby customers. A mother pulled her young son closer. An elderly man slowly reached for his cane, gripping it like a weapon. Patrick appeared beside Melissa, his voice steady despite his obvious fear. "Gentlemen, we welcome all customers who maintain station conduct policies. If you'd like to order, please do so. Otherwise, I'll have to ask you to leave." Zorn, the largest, Draxian stepped forward and knocked over a nearby self-service kiosk with a casual swing of his arm. The machine crashed to the floor, screen shattering. "We'll leave when we decide to leave," Krazathar said, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. Melissa felt something activate deep in her brain, neural pathways that had been quiet for years, suddenly lighting up. Her combat systems came online automatically, responding to the threat. Her vision sharpened, time seemed to slow, and tactical options appeared in her mind like ghost images. She pushed them away. She was a civilian now, a McDonald's worker, not a soldier. "Please step back from the counter," she said calmly. The Draxians exchanged amused glances. Krazathar reached across the counter, his clawed hand moving toward Melissa's uniform. "And what will you do if we don't, little human?" Melissa's eyes flicked toward the security cameras in the corner of the ceiling. Everything was being recorded. Whatever happened next would be documented. Danny had backed away, already reaching for the silent alarm under the counter. Patrick stood his ground but looked pale. A memory flashed through Melissa's mind. Her combat instructor's voice from basic training. "Sometimes the best defense is to not be there when the attack comes." She took a small step backward, just out of reach of Krazathar's approaching hand. Her movement was subtle, professional, not showing fear, just creating space. "Last chance," she said quietly. "Order something or leave." Krasathar's hand shot forward, faster than a normal human could track, aiming to grab her collar. But Melissa wasn't a normal human. Her implants had already calculated his movement pattern before his muscles even tensed. She didn't move. Not yet. The security cameras needed to show clearly who the aggressor was. As the Draxian's claws came within inches of her face, Melissa's 3 years of peaceful existence hung in the balance. She knew that what happened in the next few seconds would change everything. The other customers watched in frozen horror as the confrontation reached its breaking point. No one helped. No one interfered. In that moment, Melissa was completely alone. A fast food worker facing 3 aggressive aliens twice her size, just like she had been alone on that night on Neptune Station, when everyone else in her unit had been killed. When she had survived, only by doing what was necessary. Krazathar's eyes gleamed with cruel anticipation as his hand closed the final distance between them. Time seemed to slow down as Krazathar's clawed hand reached for Melissa. Her military implants activated fully, sending a surge of adrenaline through her body. Combat data flowed through her mind. Draxian weak points, attack patterns, tactical options. Just before his claws made contact with her uniform, Melissa shifted her weight. It was a small movement, almost invisible to the watching customers, but it was enough. Krazathar's hand closed on empty air where her collar had been a split second before. The Draxian's momentum carried him forward, off balance. Melissa could have struck then. Her implants identified 17 different disabling moves. But she held back. This was still a McDonald's restaurant, not a battlefield. She had to show restraint. "Please step back and leave," she said again, her voice steady despite the combat chemicals flooding her system. Krasathar's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. No human should have been able to dodge his grab. His companions noticed too. Vex tilted, his head reassessing the seemingly ordinary fast food worker. "You move well for a food dispenser," Krasathar said, his voice lower now. "Perhaps you have some training?" Patrick stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "Look, there's no need for—" Zorn shoved the manager aside with a casual sweep of his arm. Patrick stumbled backward, hitting the wall with a thud that made the other customers gasp. That changed everything for Melissa. Her manager was a civilian, completely unaugmented, untrained, and unprepared for violence. Seeing him treated that way crossed a line. "That was a mistake," she said quietly. The combat systems in her brain activated fully now, no longer held back by her conscious restraint. Data flowed through her neural pathways. The Draxians' positions, the restaurant layout, potential weapons within reach, escape routes, and civilian positions. Krasthar laughed. "And what will you do about it, human? Call security? They won't. Arrive in time to help you." He lunged across the counter, both hands reaching for her this time. But Melissa was no longer playing defense. She grabbed a nearby metal coffee pot with her right hand. As Krasathar's arms extended toward her, she stepped into his attack, the opposite of what any sensible person would do. The move surprised him, leaving him vulnerable for a critical half-second. The coffee pot swung in a precise arc, hitting the Draxian's sensitive neck scales with carefully calculated force, enough to stun, but not cause permanent damage. Krasthar let out a choked gasp as his nerve cluster took the impact. Vex reacted immediately, vaulting over the counter with frightening speed. Melissa had anticipated this. She released the coffee pot, letting it clatter to the floor as she pivoted. Her left hand grabbed a bottle of cleaning solution while her right hand found the soda dispenser nozzle. As Vex landed beside her, she sprayed carbonated liquid directly into his face. The Draxian's eyes, evolved for a dry, desert world, burned on contact with the sugary drink. He howled, clawing at his face. The entire restaurant watched in stunned silence. No one had ever seen a McDonald's worker move like this. No one had ever seen anyone handle Draxians so effectively. Zorn roared and charged around the counter, taking the long way through the swinging employee door. He was the largest of the three, nearly 8 feet tall with powerful limbs that could easily crush human bones. Melissa assessed her options in milliseconds. The kitchen offered many potential weapons, but most would cause serious harm. Her military training emphasized appropriate force. These were bullies, not enemy combatants. She grabbed a large metal tray as Zorn thundered toward her. The Draxian expected her to back away or try to flee. Instead, she dropped to the floor and slid forward on the slick surface directly toward him. The unexpected move made Zorn hesitate for a crucial moment. Melissa slid between his legs and swung the tray upward, striking a sensitive spot where his tail joined his body, a non-lethal target that her combat systems identified as temporarily disabling for his species. Zorn bellowed in pain and dropped to his knees. In less than 15 seconds, all 3 Draxians had been neutralized without serious injury. Melissa rose to her feet, breathing heavily. Not from exertion, her augmented body could handle much more, but from the shock of using her combat skills. After 3 years of peaceful civilian life, the restaurant was completely silent. Customers stared with wide eyes and open mouths. Danny had pressed himself against the far wall, looking at Melissa as if seeing her for the first time. Patrick was slowly picking himself up, his expression a mixture of pain and astonishment. "Someone, call station security," Melissa said calmly, breaking the silence. As if released from a spell, several customers reached for their communication devices. Others began talking all at once, excitedly describing what they had just witnessed. Krasthar managed to pull himself up using the counter for support. His confident demeanor had vanished, replaced by confusion and anger. "Who are you?" he demanded, one hand still rubbing his injured neck. "No food server moves like that." Melissa didn't answer. The less she said now, the better. Her cover was almost certainly blown, but there was no need to make things worse by confirming anything. Station security arrived 3 minutes later, a quick response time that told Melissa they had probably been monitoring the situation through the restaurant's cameras. 4 officers in blue uniforms entered with stun batons ready, but they paused when they saw the 3 Draxians already subdued and the small human woman standing calmly behind the counter. "What happened here?" the lead officer asked, taking in the scene. Before Melissa could answer, an elderly human man stepped forward from the crowd of customers. "I saw everything," he said firmly. "These 3 started it. They attacked the manager and tried to grab this young woman. She defended herself, and quite impressively too." Other customers nodded in agreement. A Centaurian merchant raised 4 of his 6 limbs to get attention. "I have recording," the alien said in broken English. "Very clear. Draxians are aggressors. The security officers looked at each other, clearly uncertain how to proceed. Dealing with Draxian troublemakers was one thing, but this situation was unprecedented. "We'll need statements from everyone," the lead officer finally said. "And you," he pointed at Melissa, "you'll need to come with us." Melissa nodded. She had expected this. Her 3 years of anonymity were over. Once they ran her biometrics, her military background would be revealed. Questions would be asked about why a former combat specialist was working in fast food. As the security officers began taking statements from witnesses, Melissa caught Patrick's eye. He was watching her with a new understanding. "You okay?" she asked him. He nodded slowly. "I always knew there was something different about you. Just never guessed this." "Sorry about the mess," she said, gesturing to the overturned kiosk and the splattered soda. Patrick let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Seriously? You just took down 3 Draxians with a coffee pot and a soda nozzle and you're apologizing for the mess?" Melissa shrugged. For the first time in 3 years, she felt like herself again. Melissa sat in a small interview room in the station's security office. The walls were plain white with no windows. A single table and 2 chairs were the only furniture. She had been waiting for 30 minutes. Her neural implants were still running background analysis, a habit from her military days. The room had 4 hidden cameras, motion sensors in the ceiling, and likely audio recording devices. Standard procedure for civilian security forces dealing with a potential threat. The door slid open, and 2 people entered. One wore the blue uniform of station security, Captain Laura Wilson according to her badge. The other wore a gray suit with a small Earth Alliance pin on the lapel. "Ms. Carter," Captain Wilson said as they sat down across from her. "I'm Captain Wilson, head of Nexus 7 Station Security. This is Agent Frank Morris from Earth Alliance Intelligence." Melissa nodded politely but said nothing. Her military training included protocols for capture situations. Rule 1. Don't volunteer information. Agent Morris placed a tablet on the table. "Your biometric scan was quite interesting, Lieutenant Commander Carter," so they knew who she was. Melissa had expected this. Her military identity had been hidden but not erased from Alliance databases. "Former Lieutenant Commander," she corrected. "I've been a civilian for 3 years." Morris swiped through screens on his tablet. 8 Special Operations badges, Combat Engineer certification, Neural Kinetic Augmentation Package, rated expert in 17 weapons systems. He looked up at her. "That's quite a resume for a fast food worker." "I make good fries too," Melissa said. Captain Wilson suppressed a smile, but Agent Morris remained serious. "This is no joking matter," he said. "You incapacitated 3 Draxians in a public setting. The Draxian embassy has already filed a formal complaint demanding your arrest for excessive force." Melissa leaned forward. "They attacked my manager and attempted to assault me. The security footage and witness statements will confirm that." "They do," Captain Wilson acknowledged. "Which is why you're in an interview room and not a cell. But this incident creates serious complications." Agent Morris nodded. "Specifically, your presence on this station at all. You were placed in the Civilian Protection Program after testifying against quantum defense systems. Your location was classified. Had been classified," Melissa corrected. "I'm guessing that's no longer the case." "Unfortunately, no," Morris confirmed. "The incident has gone viral across the station's social networks. Facial recognition will identify you within hours if it hasn't already. We're concerned about your safety," Captain Wilson added. Melissa appreciated the captain's concern, but she knew the real issues were more complicated. Her testimony had sent 3 executive board members of Quantum Defense Systems to prison. The company had lost billions in contracts. They had resources, connections, and motivation to silence her. "What happens now?" Melissa asked. Agent Morris turned off his tablet. "That depends. The Witness Protection Division is preparing a new identity for you. New location, new background, new job. Standard procedure." Melissa thought about another 3 years of hiding, of pretending to be someone else. The idea suddenly felt exhausting. And if I don't want that? She asked. Morris and Wilson exchanged glances. What do you mean? Wilson asked. I've been hiding for 3 years, Melissa said. Living someone else's life. Maybe it's time to stop running. Before they could respond, Melissa's enhanced hearing picked up commotion outside the room. Raised voices, quick footsteps. Her implants shifted to alert status automatically. The door slid open, and a uniformed officer stepped in. Sorry to interrupt, Captain, but there's a situation developing. The Draxian ambassador is here with a medical team. They're demanding to take custody of the 3 Draxians involved in the incident. Wilson stood quickly. Tell them no one leaves until our investigation is complete. There's more, the officer continued nervously. The station newsfeed just released footage of the incident. It's everywhere. People are gathering outside security headquarters. Morris checked his tablet, his expression darkening. He's right. The video has over 3 million views already. Melissa could imagine how it looked. A human fast food worker taking down 3 much larger alien bullies using only restaurant items. The kind of story that spread quickly. Captain Wilson sighed. Stay here, both of you. I need to handle this. After she left, Morris studied Melissa with new interest. You realize what's happening, don't you? He asked. Melissa nodded. The video makes humans look capable. Dangerous, even. It challenges the Draxian narrative that we're a weak species. Exactly. This isn't just about you anymore. It's becoming a diplomatic incident. The door opened again, but instead of Captain Wilson, a tall woman in an Earth Alliance military uniform entered. Admiral Susan Hayes, Melissa's former commanding officer. Her presence here could not be coincidence. Leave us, Morris, Admiral Hayes ordered. The intelligence agent looked like he wanted to object but thought better of it. He gathered his tablet and left, closing the door behind him. Admiral Hayes sat down across from Melissa. For a long moment, she simply looked at her former officer. You're looking well, Carter, she finally said. Fast food agrees with you. What are you doing here, Admiral? Melissa asked. Nexus 7 is a civilian station. I was in the sector when news of your little restaurant brawl reached Alliance Command. Thought I should handle this personally. Melissa's implants detected subtle stress markers in the Admiral's voice. There was more happening than a simple follow-up to an incident. Handle what exactly? Melissa asked. Hayes sighed. Your cover is blown. The quantum defense systems people know where you are. The Draxian government is demanding explanations. And the video of you taking down 3 aliens with a coffee pot has been viewed 5 million times in the last hour. Melissa processed this information. So I'm being relocated. That was the initial plan, Hayes agreed. But circumstances have changed. Outside the room, Melissa could hear more commotion. Her enhanced hearing picked up fragments of excited conversation, her name mentioned repeatedly. Hayes noticed her. Attention shift. The crowd outside has doubled in the last 10 minutes. You've become quite popular. The McDonald's warrior, they're calling you. That's a terrible name, Melissa said. Hayes almost smiled. Maybe, but it's sticking, and it creates an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? The kind that might be better for you than disappearing again? Hayes leaned forward. Carter, your testimony 3 years ago was crucial. It exposed corruption that could have cost thousands more lives. But Quantum Defense Systems is still operating, just under new management, and they're bidding for a major contract to supply defensive systems for our new colony on Europa. Melissa understood immediately. You think they're cutting corners again? Hayes nodded. We need someone who understands their systems, someone with engineering expertise and combat experience, someone the public currently sees as a hero. You want me back, Melissa said, surprised at how right it felt to say those words. Not just back, Hayes corrected. We want you visible, the face of Alliance integrity, someone who stood up to corruption once and isn't afraid to do it again. She paused, and who apparently isn't afraid to take on 3 Draxians with kitchen utensils. Melissa thought about Patrick, about Danny, about the quiet life she'd built at McDonald's. It hadn't been her real life, but it had been peaceful. What if I say no? She asked. Then we proceed with relocation, Hayes said. New identity, new job, new life. Your choice. Melissa was silent for a long moment. 3 years ago she had chosen to hide, to disappear. It had seemed like the only option then. But now, 3 days after the incident, Melissa stood by the large viewport in Admiral Hayes's temporary office on Nexus 7. Earth hung below them, a blue and white marble against the blackness of space. Melissa hadn't seen her home planet in years. The Draxian government has withdrawn their complaint, Hayes said, reviewing reports on her desk. Apparently being beaten by a food dispenser was embarrassing enough for those 3 troublemakers. They don't want more attention. Melissa nodded but kept looking at Earth. Her decision to accept Hayes's offer still felt strange and new. After 3 years of hiding, she was Lieutenant Commander Melissa Carter again. Quantum Defense Systems knows you're back, Hayes continued. Their new CEO issued a statement welcoming your return to service and expressing hope for cooperative relations with the Alliance military. Nice public relations move, Melissa said. Makes them look confident and innocent. Exactly. But behind the scenes, they're scrambling. 3 high-level executives resigned yesterday. 2 more have taken unexpected vacation time. Melissa turned from the viewport. They're running. They know I can identify their design flaws again. Hayes smiled thinly. That's what we're counting on. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Captain Wilson of Station Security, holding a package. Your new uniforms and equipment, Commander, Wilson said, handing the package to Melissa. And I wanted to personally thank you. Our Draxian incident reports are down 60% since your little demonstration. Apparently word has spread that humans might bite back. Melissa accepted the package with a nod. Just doing my job. Or jobs, I guess. After Wilson left, Melissa opened the package. Inside was a crisp blue Earth Alliance uniform with her rank insignia and combat badges. Beneath it lay a small device, a new neural interface upgrade for her implants. The latest version, Hayes explained. Your current implants are 3 years out of date. This will link you to Alliance systems again. Melissa held the small device, feeling its weight. It represented her old life, her real identity. What about Patrick and the McDonald's staff? She asked. They might be targets if Quantum wants revenge. Already handled, Hayes assured her. We've placed security details on all of them. Patrick Donovan has been offered a management position at the Alliance Officers Club restaurant. Better pay, better hours. He accepted this morning. Melissa felt relief. Patrick had been kind to her when she needed a fresh start. He deserved protection. There's something else you should see, Hayes added, activating the room's display screen. Your fan club. The screen showed a news feed from around the solar system. Headlines scrolled past. McDonald's warrior, the fast food fighter who stood up to bullies. How one woman with a coffee pot changed human-Draxian relations. Earth Alliance reinstates hero commander after viral video. Melissa groaned. This is excessive. Actually, it's useful, Hayes said, shutting off the display. Your public profile makes you harder to target. Quantum can't just make you disappear now. Too many people are watching. A new message appeared on Hayes's desk console. The Admiral read it quickly. Your transport to Earth leaves in 2 hours, she said. Alliance headquarters wants you to lead the inspection team for Quantum's new defense systems. That was fast. We've been planning this for months. Just needed the right person to lead it. Hayes gave Melissa an appraising look. Are you having second thoughts? Melissa thought about her small apartment on the station, her simple job at McDonald's, the quiet life she had built. It had never been real, but it had been peaceful. No, she finally said. It's time to stop hiding. 2 hours later, Melissa stood at the docking bay in her Alliance uniform. The neural upgrade hummed in her mind, reconnecting her to military networks and data sources. It felt both familiar and strange, like returning to a childhood home. As she waited for boarding to begin, she noticed a group approaching. Patrick, Danny, and several other McDonald's employees walked toward her, led by Captain Wilson. They insisted on saying goodbye. Wilson explained. "I thought it would be acceptable for security." Patrick stepped forward first, looking at Melissa's uniform with a mix of surprise and respect. "So you're really some kind of super soldier," he said. "That explains why you were the only one who could fix the ice cream machine." Melissa laughed, surprised by the sound. She hadn't laughed much in recent years. "Thank you," she said seriously, "for taking a chance on me, for giving me a job when I needed one." Patrick shook his head. "I think I got the better end of that deal. Not many restaurant managers can say they employed the famous McDonald's warrior." Danny handed her a small package wrapped in red and yellow paper. "It's from all of us," he explained. "Just a little goodbye gift." Melissa opened it carefully. Inside was a miniature coffee pot made of polished metal, mounted on a small stand. A plaque on the base read, "Sometimes the best weapon is whatever's handy." "We thought you might want a souvenir," Danny said, suddenly looking embarrassed. "Something to remember us by." Melissa felt an unexpected tightness in her throat. These people had been her colleagues, not her real friends. She had always kept her distance, knowing she might have to leave suddenly. But they had accepted her, worked alongside her, shared meals and breaks and small daily frustrations with her. "I'll keep it on my desk," she promised, carefully placing the gift in her bag. The docking bay speakers announced her transport was ready for boarding. Melissa said her final goodbyes and walked to the ship that would take her back to Earth, back to her real life. As she settled into her seat on the transport, Melissa thought about the strange path that had brought her here. 3 years ago, she had fled into anonymity after exposing corruption that had killed her fellow soldiers. Now, because of 3 alien bullies and a coffee pot, she was returning to finish what she had started. The ship detached from the station and began its journey to Earth. Through the small window, Melissa watched Nexus 7 grow smaller. Her hand found the small coffee pot in her bag, fingers tracing its familiar shape. She had gone from war hero to fast food worker to McDonald's warrior in the span of 3 years. What would she become next? As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Melissa felt ready to find out. 6 months later, Melissa stood at a podium in the main conference hall of Earth Alliance headquarters. Cameras floated in the air around her, broadcasting her image across the solar system. Behind her, a large screen showed the Europa colony, a gleaming set of domes on the icy moon of Jupiter. "The investigation into quantum defense systems is now complete," she announced to the assembled reporters and officials. "Our team has identified and corrected critical flaws in the life support and defense systems intended for the Europa colony." A reporter raised his hand. "Commander Carter, would these flaws have caused failures similar to those that killed your team 3 years ago?" Melissa nodded, her face serious. "Yes. Our analysis indicates that at least 30% of the environmental systems would have failed within the first year. Given Europa's harsh conditions, the death toll would have been catastrophic." Another reporter called out, "Has Quantum Defense Systems responded to these findings?" "The company's board of directors has accepted full responsibility," Melissa replied. 7 executives have resigned. 3 are facing criminal charges. Most importantly, Quantum has agreed to a complete redesign under Alliance supervision. Admiral Hayes, seated in the front row, gave Melissa an approving nod. The press conference was going exactly as planned. Melissa's public profile had made it impossible for Quantum to silence or discredit her. The evidence she and her team had gathered was too solid to dispute. After answering a few more questions, Melissa concluded the press conference. As the reporters filed out, Hayes approached the podium. "Well done, Commander," she said. "The Europa colonists owe you their lives, even if they'll never know it." "They owe it to the whole team," Melissa corrected, "and to 3 Draxian bullies who picked the wrong fast food worker to harass." Hayes smiled. "Speaking of which, there's someone here to see you." She gestured toward a side door where a familiar figure waited. Patrick Donovan, Melissa's former manager from McDonald's, wearing the neat uniform of the Officers Club restaurant. "Patrick," Melissa said warmly, crossing to greet him. "How's life on Earth treating you?" "Better hours, better pay, just like they promised," he replied, shaking her hand. Though I have to say, the military officers are pickier about their burgers than station travelers were. They walked together through the headquarters building, catching up on the past 6 months. Patrick's family had moved to Earth with him. Danny had been promoted to manager at the Nexus 7 McDonald's. The Draxians who had attacked Melissa had been assigned to a cultural sensitivity program. They're actually working at a human restaurant now, Patrick said with a laugh. Part of their rehabilitation. Apparently, they're very polite to the staff. Melissa smiled at the thought. Probably the best punishment they could get. They reached a small garden area where a reception was being held for the investigation team. Alliance officers and civilian engineers mingled, celebrating the successful completion of their mission. Patrick looked around at the uniformed officers. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "The restaurant, I mean." The question surprised Melissa. She had been so focused on the investigation, on proving that Quantum was still cutting corners, that she hadn't thought much about her time at McDonald's. Sometimes, she admitted, it was simpler. Make food, serve customers, clean up, go home. No life or death decisions. Except when Draxians attack, Patrick pointed out. Except then, she agreed with a smile. A young officer approached them, looking nervous. "Commander Carter, sorry to interrupt, but there's a call for you. The Draxian ambassador wishes to speak with you personally." Melissa raised an eyebrow. "Put it through to the garden screen." The large display on the garden wall flickered to life, showing the scaled face of Ambassador Zexkar, the senior Draxian diplomat to Earth. "Commander Carter," the ambassador began formally, "I wish to express the Draxian government's official appreciation for your handling of the recent quantum defense systems investigation." Melissa kept her face neutral, though she was surprised. "Thank you, Ambassador. May I ask why the Draxian government has an interest in this matter?" The ambassador's inner eyelids flickered briefly. "The Europa colony will include a Draxian scientific outpost. Our researchers would have been among those affected by the faulty systems." "I see," Melissa said. "I'm glad we could help ensure their safety." "There is another matter," the ambassador continued. "The 3 young Draxians from the restaurant incident. Their rehabilitation program ends next week. They have requested permission to contact you." Now Melissa was truly surprised. "Why would they want to contact me?" "To express their apologies, I believe. And perhaps to learn from you. Your handling of that confrontation has become something of a teaching moment in our cultural education programs." Melissa glanced at Patrick, who looked as astonished as she felt. "I would be willing to meet with them," she said carefully. The ambassador seemed pleased. "Excellent. It may help improve human-Draxian relations, which have been somewhat tense in recent years." After the call ended, Patrick shook his head in disbelief. "So you're not just a hero to humans now. You're improving interspecies relations. All because of a coffee pot," Melissa said with a small laugh. As the reception continued, around them Melissa's communication device chimed. A message from Admiral Hayes appeared. "New assignment ready when you are. Defense Systems inspection for Mars colony expansion. Your team leaves in 2 weeks. Details attached." Patrick noticed her expression change. "Work calling?" Melissa nodded. "Another inspection mission. More lives to save." "The adventures of the McDonald's warrior continue," Patrick said with a grin. Melissa groaned at the nickname, but there was no real annoyance behind it. 6 months ago she had been hiding, pretending to be someone she wasn't. Now she was back doing the work she was trained for, using her skills to protect others. As guests mingled around them, Melissa caught sight of the small metal coffee pot, sitting on her desk in her office, visible through the garden doors. The miniature version her restaurant colleagues had given her had become something of a lucky charm. "You know," she told Patrick, "I think working at McDonald's made me a better officer." "How so?" "It taught me to work with what I have, to adapt, to see the potential in ordinary things." She smiled. "And it gave me friends I wasn't expecting to find." Patrick raised his glass in a toast. "To unexpected friendships, and to coffee pots." the universe's most underrated weapon. Melissa laughed and raised her own glass. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new missions, new systems to inspect and lives to protect. But today, she could celebrate how far she had come from that moment behind the counter when 3 bullies made the mistake of attacking a fast food worker who was anything but ordinary. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't violence or retribution. Sometimes it was simply becoming who you were always meant to be.